Did you know there's an island in the Aegean where people are about 3 times more likely to reach 90 than Americans? Here, people regularly reach their 90s and even hundreds, staying social, sharp, and active, all without fancy gyms, green juices, or wellness retreats. So, what's their secret? Is it genetics, luck, or something in the water? In this video, I'll walk you through why Ikaria matters, the numbers and the research that prove this isn't just folklore, the daily habits, diet, movement, and daily rhythm that keep people thriving, and what's unique to Ikaria: mindset, family, culture, and daily rituals. Stay until the end. I'll give you 3 simple, practical changes you can start this week that borrow directly from how they live. Why Ikaria matters. This is based off information in the book The Blue Zones by Dan Buettner. Ikaria is a small, rugged island in the Aegean Sea. Steep hills, narrow valleys, more goat paths than roads. It sits roughly 30 miles off the coast of Turkey, and, at first glance, looks like many quiet Mediterranean islands. But what put this island on the map for scientists wasn't the scenery, it was the people. Far more residents reach their 90s and 100s than you'd expect, and they aren't frail. Many remain mentally sharp, socially active, and engaged in daily life well into very old age. But here's something even more unusual. In most places, women outlive men by a large margin. On this island, men reach old age at almost the same rate as women, a rare pattern that immediately made researchers sit up and take notice. Researchers didn't accept local stories at face value. When demographers began looking, they went into the archives and verified ages, checking birth, death, and migration records to avoid the age inflation problems that have sunk other longevity claims. What they found were real clusters of villages with unusually high proportions of people aged 90 and older. The numbers are striking. Compared with mainland Greece, the island shows dramatically lower rates of dementia, depression, and cardiovascular disease. In some surveys, only about 20% of people over 80 showed signs of dementia, roughly half the rate seen in comparable Greek studies. Visiting teams ran detailed health, physical, and cognitive tests on many of the oldest residents, and the pattern held up under careful scientific scrutiny. Because those findings were confirmed, Ikaria became recognised as one of the world's 5 blue zones, rare places where people live significantly longer, healthier lives. Other blue zones I've covered include Sardinia, Okinawa, Loma Linda, and the Nicoya Peninsula. Even among those well-studied regions, Ikaria stands out for how consistently healthy its oldest residents remain. There's also a historical angle worth noting. Centuries of isolation, rough terrain, pirate raids, and seasonal hardship pushed people into the island's interior and helped shape resilient, close-knit communities. That history left a cultural imprint, a way of life researchers now study for clues about healthy aging. So, the statistics aren't an accident. Ikaria is a verified outlier in human longevity. And that's exactly why researchers keep coming back. Which raises the obvious question: what in everyday life produces those healthier, longer lives? The answer isn't one miracle, it's the structure of daily living. Before we unpack those routines, here's a short, true story from the book that shows why the question matters. There's a story in the book that was quite eye-opening. A man named Stamatis Moraitis had spent most of his life in the United States. He'd built a home, a family, the American dream. Then, in his early 60s, 5 different doctors told him the same thing. He had lung cancer, and he had only 6 to 9 months to live. Stamatis faced a choice. He could stay in Boynton Beach, near his 3 grown children, and pursue aggressive treatment, or he could go home, back to Ikaria, and die among his people. A funeral in Boynton Beach would cost about $1,200. A funeral in Ikaria would be closer to $200. He decided to go home. He and his wife moved in with his elderly parents into a tiny whitewashed house on 2 acres of vineyards. At first, he stayed in bed while his family cared for him, but he forced himself to walk to church, and his old friends started stopping by, sitting with him for hours, bringing locally made wine. Then something unexpected happened. Months went by. He started to feel stronger. He got out of bed in the afternoon and shuffled around the gardens and vineyards. One day, on a whim, he planted a few potatoes, green onions, garlic, and carrots. Not because he expected to survive, but because it felt good to be in the sunshine, breathing the clean ocean air, and getting his hands dirty with the soil of his birth. 6 months came and went. Stamatis didn't die. Instead, he harvested that garden and, feeling emboldened, cleaned up the family vineyard as well. He settled into a new rhythm. He woke up late, worked in the vineyards until mid-afternoon, made himself lunch, and then took a long nap. In the evenings, he either drank wine with friends at home or walked to the local tavern where he stayed up past midnight playing dominoes. Years passed, his health kept getting better. Over time, he rebuilt the vineyard, producing about 400 gallons of wine a year. At the time the book was wrote, 35 years later, he is 100 years old and cancer-free. He never went through chemotherapy, took drugs, or sought therapy of any sort. All he did was move to Ikaria. You don't have to call it a miracle. Think of it as an example. A change of environment, a slower pace, daily routines, and a social world that rewired how he lived. In a very human way, a person's whole health trajectory changed. Stories like Matters's are what first drew researchers, demographers like Michel Paulain, and teams from National Geographic to study the island more closely. But the story itself isn't the answer. The question is, what everyday patterns of life on this island make stories like that possible? Lifestyle, diet, daily movement, and rhythm. Diet, what they eat, how they eat, and why it matters. On Ikaria, the traditional diet is a variation of the Mediterranean diet. Plant-forward, simple, and mostly unprocessed. Lots of fruit and vegetables, beans, lentils, garbanzos, which are chickpeas, potatoes, whole grains, and olive oil appear in nearly every meal. Dairy and meat are eaten much less often, and fish is occasional. Meat is usually reserved for festivals or special occasions, and moderate alcohol is often enjoyed with meals. There's an important principle behind this. The cheapest, most accessible foods are also the healthiest. And generations of people have spent centuries developing recipes that make them taste good. Two local details matter more than trendy superfoods. Wild greens. People gather more than 150 varieties of wild greens, horta and others, and use them in salads and pies. Some of these greens contain more than 10 times the antioxidants found in red wine, goat milk and honey. Breakfast often includes goat milk or yogurt. Goat milk supplies calcium, potassium and tryptophan, and it's easier for many people to digest. And as local physician Dimitri Sladiadis explained about honey, they have types of honey here you won't see any place else in the world. They use it for everything from treating wounds to curing hangovers, or for treating influenza. Old people here will start their day with a spoonful of honey. They take it like medicine. Herbal infusions are also part of daily life. In many villages, people drink what they call mountain tea every day. Simple herbal brews made from plants like oregano, rosemary, sage, or other herbs that happen to be in season. Locals tend to rotate the herbs instead of drinking the same one all the time. Researchers have found these herbs are rich in polyphenols and other bioactive compounds. As one local doctor put it, people think they are just drinking a comforting beverage. But many of these teas double as medicine. Over decades, those small daily habits can add up. Olive oil. It's central, but there's a practical point here. Use fresh oil and don't cook it to smoke point. High heat degrades the beneficial fats and antioxidants. Fasting as rhythm. Orthodox fasting is woven into everyday life on Ikaria. Traditionally, the Greek Orthodox calendar calls for fasting periods that add up to almost half the year. Times when people naturally eat fewer calories and simpler foods. It isn't a modern diet trend, it's part of the island's cultural rhythm. Scientists have long studied caloric restriction, regularly reducing calories, because in mammals it's one of the few interventions shown to slow parts of the aging process. Practices like these may quietly contribute to the longevity seen here. Nutrition researcher Dr. Antonia Trichapoulou has estimated that the traditional Ikarian diet, compared with the standard American diet, could account for as much as 4 extra years of life expectancy. 4 years, simply from the way people eat over a lifetime. Onto movement. You won't see exercise on a schedule. You won't find many people on Ikaria with gym memberships. Movement simply comes as part of daily life. Think back to Stamatis Maraitis. After returning home, he walked up the hill to church, tended gardens, and worked the vineyard. That wasn't a fitness program, it was simply the rhythm of living there. The island is steep and mountainous, the author said. You cannot get through a day in Ikaria without walking 20 hills. Over a lifetime, that terrain becomes a powerful form of exercise. Many of the longest lived Ikarians spent their working lives as farmers or in physically demanding rural jobs, including work in the island's forests and highlands. Their occupations required constant movement, farming terraced land, carrying tools, tending animals, walking long distances. Most weren't following workout routines. Their daily lives required steady, physical effort. Call it mindless movement. Activity built into life, not scheduled on a calendar. Over decades, that constant movement builds strength, balance, and resilience. The lesson for us is practical. Design environments that make movement unavoidable. Take the stairs. Walk when possible. Plant a garden. Buy a bike you actually ride. Build activity into the structure of your day, instead of relying only on willpower. Rhythm. Naps, sleep, and a slower body clock. Daily rhythm matters on Ikaria almost as much as diet and movement. People typically wake late, work through the morning and early afternoon, have a late lunch and then take a nap. At sunset, they would either visit neighbours or neighbours would visit them. They would drink tea or wine, eat a late dinner and go to bed. The culture itself moves at a different pace. As one local doctor explained, people stay up late here. They wake up late and always take naps. I don't even open my office until 11 AM because no one comes before then. Have you noticed that no one wears a watch here? No clock is working correctly. When you invite someone to lunch, they might come at 10 AM or 6 PM. We simply don't care about the clock here. That slower rhythm reduces constant time pressure, and lower stress levels are strongly linked to better brain and heart health. Napping is especially common. Research on Greek populations has found that people who nap regularly can have significantly lower rates of heart disease. In some studies, up to about 30 to 35% lower risk of dying from coronary causes. Midday rest may help lower stress hormones and give the heart time to recover. The bottom line is simple. Build in rest, a predictable sleep pattern, enough night sleep, and a short midday break can support long-term health. As one researcher joked, your kindergarten teacher may have been right. So, diet, movement and rhythm explain how people live longer. But there's another layer. Something that makes those habits sustainable for decades. It isn't just what people do. It's the culture that surrounds them. And that's where things get even more interesting. What's specific to Ikaria? Mindset, family, culture, and daily rituals. This is the multiplier. The social and cultural ecosystem that makes healthy habits effortless and sustainable. It's the environment that quietly reinforces everything we've already talked about. The food, the movement, the rhythm of life. On Ikaria, those habits aren't individual choices you have to force yourself to make. They're built into the way the community lives. So first on purpose and mindset. People on Ikaria wake up with a reason to be useful. Elders aren't pushed to the sidelines. They tend gardens, help prepare village meals, watch grandchildren, keep family traditions alive, or simply check in on neighbours. There's always something to contribute, whether it's a small vegetable patch or a whole vineyard. That daily usefulness creates something powerful, a real sense of being needed. Across the world's longevity hotspots, the places often called blue zones, studied by researchers like Dan Buettner, having a sense of purpose consistently shows up as one of the strongest predictors of a longer, healthier life. It's not just motivational language, it's measurable. People with purpose tend to stay more active, socially engaged and mentally sharp. And the mindset reflects that lifestyle. Ikarians are known for being relaxed, welcoming, and slow to rush through life. Conversations linger, meals stretch out, and people genuinely enjoy one another's company. When life moves at that pace, and when you're surrounded by people who value your role, it creates a powerful foundation for well-being that lasts decades. Now on family and community. Villages on Ikaria function more like extended families than neighbours. Multi-generational households are common. Neighbours drop in daily. Festivals, shared meals and communal work are part of normal life. If someone is sick, people bring food. If a family needs help, the village shows up. That constant connection does something for health. Researchers who analysed 148 different studies found that people with weak social connections had about a 50% higher chance of dying during the follow-up period than those with strong social networks. On Ikaria, those connections aren't something you have to schedule or force. They're built into everyday life, which means emotional support, practical help, and companionship are always close by. And over decades, that kind of social safety net becomes one of the strongest predictors of a long life. Now on culture. As I said earlier, life on Ikaria moves at a slower pace, and the culture actively protects that rhythm. People don't obsess over the clock, shops open late, invitations are flexible, and rushing through the day simply isn't normal. That slower pace reduces chronic stress, something that quietly protects the heart and brain over decades. It's also a culture built around community accountability. As locals often say, everyone knows everyone's business, and strangely, that lack of privacy creates security. People look out for one another, neighbours step in if children misbehave, and social pressure keeps behaviour in check. Crime stays low, not because of heavy policing, but because no one wants to embarrass their family. Food culture reflects this mindset too. Many families grow their own fruit and vegetables, keep vineyards, and gather wild herbs from the hills. Not only does this create a sense of purpose, as mentioned earlier, it also builds natural movement into daily life. And own-grown produce, when done right, is much better quality than modern supermarket food. And the wild herbs are naturally organic anyway. But locals will tell you, the real secret isn't just what they eat, it's how they eat. Meals are rarely rushed. Even a simple lunch becomes time to sit, talk, and enjoy the company around you. And, over a lifetime, that combination of slower living, shared responsibility, and social meals becomes another quiet driver of longevity. Herbal teas, everyday medicine. On Ikaria, a nightly ritual of mountain tea shows up at nearly every table. Oregano, rosemary, sage, marjoram, dandelion, mint, and whatever's in season. Long-term dietary surveys show elders drank these infusions for decades. Analyses by researchers including Loana Chinou at the University of Athens School of Pharmacy found they're rich in polyphenols and that many act as mild diuretics. The islanders rotate herbs to avoid overexposure to any one compound. Over a lifetime, that small, shared habit, antioxidant exposure plus gentle diuresis, plausibly helps keep blood pressure down, reduce vascular damage, and lower dementia risk. Red wine, social synergy, not excess. On Ikaria, wine is typically enjoyed in moderation, and almost always with food and other people. Much of the wine is locally produced, often made by families, friends, or neighbours. It isn't a mass market product consumed in isolation. It's part of the island's agricultural and social rhythm. Vineyard work, fermentation, and sharing the finished wine are embedded in community life. Cardiologist Christina Chrysohu has noted an important finding. When wine is consumed alongside a plant-based meal, flavonoid absorption increases, and the combined effect can be significantly greater than drinking wine alone. In other words, the benefit depends not just on the wine itself, but on the context in which it is consumed. On the island, wine is part of shared meals and conversation, not a solitary habit. It's embedded in daily social life, alongside vegetables, olive oil, legumes, and time spent together. That combination of moderation, plant-rich food, and social connection is what turns wine from a potential risk into an example of nutritional synergy. And once again, context makes the difference. Now a part on goat's milk. Goat's milk is a common part of daily life on Ikaria, often appearing at breakfast or in simple snacks. As highlighted in the research, goat milk is a good source of calcium, potassium, and tryptophan, the amino acid associated with relaxation and stress regulation. It also contains oligosaccharides, compounds that help promote healthy intestinal flora. Interestingly, goat milk is structurally similar to human milk and is often easier to digest. It's considered hypoallergenic and can usually be tolerated by people who struggle with lactose in cow's milk. In this context, dairy isn't industrial or heavily processed. It's local, simple, and consumed in moderate amounts as part of everyday life. Now a little part on honey, medicine in a spoon. On Ikaria, honey isn't just a sweetener, it's treated as medicine. As described in the book, local honey varieties are considered unique, and older residents often begin their day with a spoonful, taking it much like a daily remedy. Honey is used traditionally for wound care, colds, hangovers, and influenza. Historically, it has been applied directly to wounds for its antibacterial properties, a practice used across Europe and elsewhere for centuries. From a nutritional perspective, studies show honey may help with blood sugar regulation and can slow the oxidation of bad LDL cholesterol. Research has also found that darker honeys tend to contain more antioxidants and less water than lighter varieties. In Ikaria, honey fits the same pattern as the other rituals. Locally produced, naturally rich in bioactive compounds, and consumed in small, consistent amounts as part of everyday life. If you want to go deeper into Ikaria's honey and why it matters for longevity, watch the video top right of the screen after this. These ingredients, purpose, strong social ties, slower living, and daily rituals like herbal tea, wine, goat's milk, and honey don't work in isolation. Together, they reinforce the diet, movement, and rhythm of life we've already discussed. Healthy behaviours aren't forced. They're supported by the community, the culture, and daily routine. That's why Ikaria's advantage isn't a single trick or miracle food. It shows up across the whole population, because the system itself makes longevity the easier path. Now you can see the full picture. Ikaria's advantage isn't one magic food or one secret habit. It's the way purpose, family, culture, and daily rituals all reinforce each other, making healthy living the default, not the exception. So, what can you actually do with that? Try these 3 simple changes this week. Number 1. Start a herbal tea ritual. Choose 2 or 3 herbs. Sage, rosemary, oregano, chamomile, and have 1 cup every day for a week. Rotate the herbs every couple of days if you want. If you can, share the cup with someone. It's calming, social, and those polyphenols plus mild diuretic effects may help blood pressure over time. Number 2. Make lunch your biggest meal and add beans or greens. Shift more of your calories to midday. Try a hearty, plant-based meal with beans, greens, potatoes, or whole grains. Then keep dinner lighter and earlier. Try it for a week and notice your energy and sleep. Number 3. Add natural movement into your day. Build movement into life the way people do on the island. Walking, gardening, chores, stairs instead of lifts. You can also include stretching, yoga, or cycling. Anything sustainable. The goal isn't intense workouts. It's consistent, natural activity. Small movements repeated daily add up. Ikaria's secret isn't a pill or a fad. It's building days that make healthy choices simple. Real food, natural movement, rest, and rituals that keep you connected. Do these 3 things for a week, see how you feel, and tell me which one made the biggest difference in the comments. If you found this useful, subscribe and turn notifications on. More Blue Zones and longevity deep dives are coming. If you learned something new, please like and subscribe to keep learning. If you know anyone that's interested in this kind of content, please share this to them as it really helps me out. If you want to watch any of my other videos I've made in this series or the next video is out, then the playlist will be on screen now. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. And remember, stay positive even when it seems everything is against you.